So, there I was, at what was supposed to be a celebratory Sunday dinner, holding an envelope that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. It wasn't just the paper inside, it was the weight of my entire family's smug, suffocating certainty. My sister-in-law, Jessica, was practically vibrating in her seat across the table, a venomous little smile playing on her lips. She kept whispering to her fiancé, Kevin, who just looked deeply, deeply uncomfortable. My husband, Tom, was a statue of tension beside me, his hand a vice grip on my knee, a silent promise of support in the lion's den. My mother-in-law was beaming at Jessica, looking like a proud queen whose champion was about to win the joust. I took a slow, deliberate breath, letting the silence in the room stretch until it was thin and ready to snap. I looked past Jessica, past my mother-in-law, and locked eyes with my father-in-law, a man who was usually just quiet background noise in this chaotic family. "Well," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "The results are in." Jessica leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Go on," she purred. I looked down at the paper, then back up and gave them all a bright, innocent smile. "It says here there is a 99.999% probability that Tom is the father of our son, Leo." I paused, letting that little fact land. Tom let out a breath he'd been holding for weeks. Jessica's face fell, just for a second, before twisting into disbelief. But I continued, turning the page over as if there was more to read. "There's another result here that's, well, it's a real shocker. It seems that while Tom is without a doubt his mother's son," I looked directly at my mother-in-law, whose smile was now frozen on her face, "there is a 0% chance that he's biologically related to his father." You could have heard a pin drop on the thick pile carpet. Let me tell you, this nightmare all started about 3 months ago, the day my beautiful son was born. To understand the absolute insanity of it all, you need to know about Jessica. My husband Tom is the best man I've ever known, kind, steady, and the complete opposite of his family's brand of drama. His sister, Jessica, is, well, she's the star of her own lifelong movie, and everyone else is just a supporting character. She's always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in her mother's eyes. When I came into the picture, I wasn't just Tom's girlfriend, I was the rival, the woman who was stealing her brother's attention and time. The last 5 years had been a masterclass in passive aggression, backhanded compliments, and thinly veiled insults. I put up with it for Tom because that's what you do. You smile, you grit your teeth, and you pretend her comment about your dress looking brave was a genuine compliment. Her fiancé, Kevin, was a nice enough guy. The problem was, he was her nice guy. They'd been together since high school, and she treated him less like a partner and more like a prize she'd won. He was handsome, came from a good family, and, most importantly, he adored her in a way that fed her insatiable need for validation. My relationship with my in-laws was cordial on the surface. My mother-in-law, Carol, clearly favored Jessica but tolerated me. My father-in-law, Bill, was a quiet man. He just sort of existed on the periphery, reading his paper, nodding at the right times, and generally staying out of the line of fire between his wife and daughter. I always felt a little sad for him, like he'd just given up. Then I got pregnant, and the subtle digs from Jessica became a little less subtle. She'd make comments about how I was trapping her brother, how having a baby would ruin his fun. Classic, textbook jealousy. I ignored it. We were having a baby, a perfect little boy, and nothing she could say would tarnish that. Oh, how wrong I was. The day we brought Leo home from the hospital was the best day of my life. He was perfect. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, and a little tuft of dark hair. Tom was on cloud 9. We were in our own little bubble of bliss. And then, the family came to visit. They all cooed over him, of course. But as Jessica leaned over the bassinet, her face shifted. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible change, but I saw it. She squinted. "Huh," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "That's weird." My mother-in-law, ever the enabler, asked, "What is it, sweetie?" Jessica pointed a perfectly manicured finger at my newborn son. "He has Kevin's nose," she declared. The air in the room went from warm and happy to freezing cold in a split second. Tom laughed, a tight, awkward sound. "Jess, what are you talking about?" "He's a baby. He has a baby nose." "No, I'm serious," she insisted, looking at Kevin and then back at the baby. Look at the bridge. It's exactly the same. That's so strange. Kevin just shuffled his feet and mumbled something about all babies looking like potatoes. But the damage was done. A seed of pure, malicious poison had been planted. I wanted to scream, to throw them all out of my house, but I was exhausted and overwhelmed, so I just scooped Leo up and said he needed a diaper change, escaping to the nursery. I thought that would be the end of it. A stupid, tactless comment from a jealous sister. It was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, it became her favorite topic of conversation. At every family gathering, she'd find a way to bring it up. Oh, look, Leo's making that face again. Kevin makes that exact same face when he's concentrating, or, his hair has a reddish tint in the sun, just like Kevin's. Each comment was a little paper cut. It was death by 1,000 cuts. Tom tried to shut her down every single time. He'd say, "Jessica, stop it. That's not funny," or "You're being ridiculous. Leave my wife and son alone." But it would just bounce right off her. She'd put on a wounded expression and say, "I'm just making an observation. Why is everyone so sensitive?" And my mother-in-law, Carol, would always take her side. "Oh, Tom, she doesn't mean anything by it. She's just fascinated by family resemblances. Don't be so hard on your sister." The pressure was immense. I was a new mom, dealing with sleepless nights, hormonal shifts, and the general terror of keeping a tiny human alive. And on top of it all, I had to deal with this constant, insidious whispering campaign from my sister-in-law. It started to get in my head. Not because I thought for a second it was true, but because her accusations were so vile, so unbelievably cruel. Who does that to a new mother? Who tries to destroy a family at its most vulnerable moment? The escalation came at the first big family barbecue that summer. Leo was about 2 months old. I was sitting with some of Tom's aunts, proudly showing off the baby, when Jessica sauntered over with a plate of potato salad. "He's getting so big," she said, a little too sweetly. Then she leaned in, as if sharing a secret with the whole group. The other day, I was looking through Kevin's baby pictures, and it's uncanny. I mean, they could be twins. Isn't that the wildest thing? One of the aunts, a kind woman named Sharon, looked at her blankly. "Jessica, what are you implying?" Jessica just shrugged, feigning innocence. "Implying? I'm not implying anything. It's just a crazy coincidence." She looked right at me, a challenge in her eyes. My blood ran cold. That night, Tom got into a massive shouting match with her on the phone. I could hear his voice from the other room, raw with anger. "What is wrong with you? Do you have any idea how hurtful you're being?" He came back into the bedroom looking defeated. She actually suggested to me that you might have cheated. That I should protect myself." I just broke down. The weight of it all came crashing down on me. Through my tears, I told Tom, I can't do this anymore. I can't be around her. I can't have our son around that kind of poison. Tom was amazing. He went into full protective mode. He told his mom and Jessica that until Jessica could offer me a sincere, heartfelt apology and drop this disgusting fantasy of hers, we wouldn't be attending any more family functions. You can guess how well that went over. My mother-in-law called me, not him. She told me I was tearing the family apart, that I was too sensitive, and that I was turning her son against his own sister. The word selfish was used a lot. It was a masterclass in manipulation and guilt-tripping. I hung up the phone, shaking with rage. This wasn't just Jessica anymore, it was a team effort. We held our ground for a month. It was a peaceful, wonderful month, just the 3 of us. But the pressure from the extended family to make peace was relentless. Finally, we agreed to a Sunday dinner at my in-laws' house. The condition was that there would be no more talk of Leo's parentage. Jessica had supposedly agreed. The dinner started off tense, but fine. We talked about the weather, work, all the safe, boring topics. I was starting to think, just maybe, we could get through it. Then, dessert was served. My mother-in-law brought out a cake. As she set it down, Jessica stood up, clinking her fork against her glass. "I'd like to make a toast," she announced, her voice dripping with fake sincerity. My stomach plummeted. I just knew this was it. She raised her glass. To family. And to the truth. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. "Tom, I love you, you're my brother, and I can't stand the thought of you being deceived." She looked straight at me. I know this is awkward, but for the good of this family, to clear the air once and for all, I think you need to get a paternity test. The entire table went silent. Tom shot up from his chair. That's it. We're leaving. Jessica, you are unbelievable. But as he was getting up, a strange calm washed over me. It was the kind of calm you feel in the eye of a hurricane. The exhaustion, the anger, the hurt, it all coalesced into a single, hard point of clarity. I was done being the victim. I was done being their punching bag. I put my hand on Tom's arm. Sit down, I said quietly. He looked at me confused. I turned to Jessica, my voice steady and clear. You want a DNA test, Jessica? You'll get one. On one condition. She looked triumphant. Anything. You pay for it, I said. Every single cent. And since you're so interested in the integrity of this family's genetics, we'll do a full workup. We'll test my son against Tom, of course. But we'll also test Tom and you against your father. Just to establish a proper, scientific baseline for the family's genes. You know, for science. A flicker of something panic? Annoyance crossed my mother-in-law's face. Well, I don't think that's necessary. But Jessica, blinded by her own arrogance, cut her off. Fine. Perfect. That way, when it proves I'm right, you can't say the lab made a mistake. She was so sure of herself, so convinced of her own narrative, that she walked right into the trap. My father-in-law, Bill, had gone pale. He just stared at his plate. At the time, I thought it was just the shock of it all. I had no idea. So, we did it. We all went to the clinic the following week. It was the most awkward car ride of my life. Jessica acted like she was planning a party. I just focused on my breathing. Tom held my hand the whole time. The swabbing was quick and clinical. And then we waited. Which brings us back to that Sunday dinner, a few weeks later. The results had arrived in the mail that morning, addressed to me. I hadn't opened them. I wanted an audience. After I dropped the first bombshell, that Tom was, of course, Leo's father, I let the silence hang in the air. I stared at Jessica, whose face had gone from smug to chalky white. She started to stammer, the lab, they must have made a mistake. Oh, I don't think so, I said, my voice sweet as sugar. They're very thorough. Which brings me to the other result. And that's when I revealed the truth that shattered their perfect little world. There is a 0% chance that Bill is Tom's biological father. My mother-in-law let out a sound that was half scream, half sob. That's a lie. You faked it. You're a monster. But my father-in-law, Bill, the quiet man, the background noise, slowly lifted his head. And for the first time, I saw something other than resignation in his eyes. It was relief. A deep, profound, 30-year-old relief. He looked at his wife, and his voice was quiet but carried across the silent room. No, Carol. It's not a lie. The story that tumbled out was messier and sadder than anything I could have imagined. My mother-in-law had had an affair, decades ago, with her husband's best friend. She'd gotten pregnant. She passed Tom off as Bill's son, and Bill, who was deeply in love with her and terrified of losing his family, had his suspicions but chose to live with the lie. He raised Tom as his own, loving him completely, but always carrying that secret, that seed of doubt. The other man had moved away years ago. Bill never said a word. He just quietly accepted his fate. The revelation explained everything. It explained why my mother-in-law was so obsessed with image and appearances. It explained why she coddled Jessica, her true biological child, with Bill, and always seemed to have a strange distance from Tom. It explained the deep, unspoken sadness in Bill's eyes. Jessica was completely broken. Her entire identity was built on the foundation of her perfect family, her golden child status. She just sat there, staring into space, as her world crumbled around her. Her fiancé, Kevin, looked at her with a mixture of pity and horror. He got up, mumbled an apology, and walked out. I learned later that he called off the engagement that night. He told her he couldn't marry into a family that was so cruel and built on such a toxic web of lies. The aftermath was quiet. Tom was devastated, of course. He had to process the fact that the man who raised him wasn't his biological father. But through the grief, there was also a strange sense of liberation. He and Bill started talking, really talking, for the first time in their lives. Without the lie between them, they began to build a real, honest father-son relationship. Bill told Tom that biology didn't matter, that he'd always be his son, and for the first time, Tom truly believed it. We went completely no contact with Carol and Jessica. The last I heard, they were living together, two bitter queens in a fallen kingdom, blaming me for everything. Fine by me. Let them. My life is peaceful now. It's filled with the quiet joy of watching my son grow, of seeing the genuine, unburdened smile on my husband's face, and even the occasional, happy visit from my father-in-law, who seems like a different, lighter man. The DNA test that Jessica demanded to ruin my family actually ended up saving it, or at least, the parts of it that were worth saving. She went looking for a fire and ended up burning her own house to the ground.